Before we get to the podcast, if you have middle school or high school kids that play sports and you don't want to fundraise like me, we got you covered. My buddy Chris Carneal owns Booster. Chris?
We help schools and sports teams raise funds in a super fun and engaging way. In fact, the last 22 years, we've raised $750 million, and we can't wait to help you. Choose booster.com.
Welcome back to Pure Athlete. I'm Jeff, along with Britt and Brad. Guys, spring is almost done and summer's coming. Are y'all ready?
It just goes faster and faster the older you get, man.
It's going to go from 60 to 90. We don't get much of a spring. We
you're right
we
about
go from
that.
winter to summer here in Atlanta.
And then the kids are home every day.
Oh, yeah. That's a joy.
It's a great time in sports, so there's been all kind of fun stuff.
It is. The NBA playoffs are rolling. And for me, baseball's rolling, but that Masters
was unbelievable.
It was great, wasn't it?
Do you think it was the greatest Masters of all time?
No.
I'll
up there.
I'll follow up with you. So I was watching the Golf Channel afterwards. They ranked it the third best. They said that Nicklaus winning in 86, I think, Tiger in 97, just because what it meant for the sport, even though it was a runaway. And they had this ranked third. I mean, I would rank it higher, I think. Now, I don't remember Nicklaus, but I remember, I've never sat through.
You don't remember Nicklaus?
No, I don't. I wasn't as big a golf fan then. I was alive. Don't worry. I was.
Good Lord.
I
was only 2 years old. So
I was at the Masters that Sunday.
Were you really?
When Nicklaus won in 86.
Were you really?
And the roar, we left and went and watched it on TV when Nicklaus was on like 14, because you could not.
Was it to leave?
You couldn't. I mean, it was bedlam.
You couldn't get anywhere.
So
close
I followed him from 10 to 14, and then it was just like, what's the point? But just walking out and kind of running out because we wanted to get to a TV. I mean, the roars were it's just unbelievable.
Yeah. For me, still Tiger when he won it back in 21.
Yeah,
that was pretty good.
That was
really
just
cool.
because of what
That was very
been
cool.
through.
It was a great. I mean, now that I'm talking about your kids getting older, this was the first weekend that I've been able to watch the Masters, like just really sitting on the sofa.
Yeah.
I mean, really, it is
Like for 7 hours.
I know. I mean, I've never been able to do that before. It was amazing.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, this is great. And it was a heck of a Masters.
I saw one Instagram where dad said, this is where you tell your kids it's bedtime, turn everything off, and it's only like 3 in the afternoon. So they go and you
dark curtains up. Yeah.
Well, it was so
It was good.
fun to watch Rory. Finally win it.
So we got a cool kind of little setup today. We got some big news we're going to talk about in about 15, 20 minutes. But I thought, we're going on about 2.5 years now.
Yep.
And I think we thought this was a good chance to kind of talk about what we've learned, right? Or what we've changed opinions on maybe that we've done.
Yeah. Well, and especially Jeff, Brad and I are done. And we've learned a lot, and we'll talk a little bit about this as we go by, but you're in the midst of it.
Well, I want to interrupt you.
Yeah.
I wish we had taped. Well, we do have it on tape.
We do.
But I'm talking about some of those earlier conversations with Jeff at Chick-fil-A and things like that with his opinions about youth sports. And we could play him back here 2.5 years later to see how they've changed. But we do have a few documented here on the show.
Brad and I, really, we would walk away from those at times and say, just wait. Just give it 3-4 years. And I'll say it's still true, because as your kids get into high school, things even change even more.
Yeah.
And you just can't know.
The
until you
landscape's
experience
changing
it.
quickly.
Yeah.
And we talk about social media. We talk about all that stuff. A lot of that is driving it quicker than probably what we all thought, and definitely what I thought.
So for the audience for the members who haven't been with us a long time, tell how old your kids are and what they're into.
11, 9, 6, and 4. We got softball and volleyball. We got lacrosse and football. Got softball, cheerleading, and then my little guy's 4. So he's doing t-ball, baseball, but that's it right now.
Yeah.
He's on a travel team, right?
He's on a travel team.
He's up in D.C. right now in a tournament.
We're headed to New York next week for
his perfect game ranking. Yes.
Oh God, that's funny.
So what are you dealing with right now?
I think some of the things that I had opinions on and I've definitely changed. I can tell you this. I used to yell a lot more during days of games and stuff, and now I am almost totally encouragement during the games. unless someone's not listening or hustling. That's the only time I'll get on.
As a coach.
As a
you mean,
coach, my kids,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter, because I feel like anything when I'm coaching my kids' team, I coach my daughter and I coach my son the same way I coach those other kids. I just don't know how to do it any different.
Yeah.
I'm going to push them all at certain things, but I would say that the level of encouragement has gone way up for me during games, and less of kind of the body language that we don't like to talk about. And then I would say the opposite is in practice, the amount that I'm on them and really coaching has gone way up. I practice a lot harder than I probably did 2.5 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what's caused that, you think? You think listening to our guests has caused that? Or just
Absolutely.
Kind of watching the environment
I think
around
listening
you?
to our guests and look, even feedback that we get, little things that I'll read on when people DM us or give things and like, this is what I did. And I'm like, I kind of like that. I like that little thing. One thing I took was after a game, I can't remember who talked about it, but the coaching and with the hat on, the hat off, that's what I do. I throw when I'm the hat on, they know I'm the coach. And when we get in the car and I throw it off, I'm dad. And if they want to talk about it, great. But those are a couple things that I think have changed a lot.
I love that. I mean, we gosh, if I could go back and if we had, and I'm not patting our backs, but with the people that we have on this program,
Yeah.
if we had this, Brad, when, every week, and a lot of the things aren't necessarily that we're learning new things each week, but we're just being reinforced about the way to handle things. And I wish so bad I'd had that every week to be able to just remind me of what this is really all about.
Yeah, my oldest son, it was finished with his journey, but I had about 2 years with my younger son when we were listening, and it helped me a lot.
Yeah.
And I think the number one theme that I got out of it was perspective.
Yeah.
Just perspective of just, just listen to David Pollocks of the world, listen to the Mark DeRosas of the world, the Jessica Mendozas, just about like really cherish these moments. It was more about like, the memory is more important than like, because as parents, we're so like task oriented, we're so goal oriented for our kids. And it's like, just stop and just cherish this time, cherish this time in the car, cherish this time at a game or a practice, and not always think about where is this leading to, and that's kind of something, just give me perspective. And that was really, but yeah, gosh, I wish we'd had this 10 years ago.
Another thing, you got to have built-in breaks, man, for the kids, for the parents, for coaches, for everything. I told you, man, Easter weekend, it was so nice. We were out by the pool. We had family dinner, and it was amazing. Like after that, just the kids were so relaxed, so at ease. If anything, I feel like their work ethic went back up because they had a break. They were excited to be there. And that's the one thing I looked at. Like, there's got to be built-in breaks, man. There has to. I don't care whether you're playing one sport or 3 sports. There's got to be times where you do nothing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more as I look back and the things that I've learned in all this. My boys played an individual sport, and that makes it even harder because you don't have the camaraderie.
Yep.
But yeah, I wish I'd given them more breaks. And listening to us talk about this and other people talk about it, and we said that we want to be counterculture. We want Pure Athlete to push back on the culture, and that is the culture. The culture is you got to go, go, go. You can't miss this tournament. At 9 years old,
You're falling behind.
You're falling behind.
Can't go to the
all those
beach for the
types of
summer or
things.
that kind of stuff.
It's crazy.
Do not buy that.
No, it's crazy.
And as parents, you have to make sure you watch after your kids and you know what, we're going to the beach for a week or we're going to the lake for 4 days.
So Jeff, I got a question for you. One of the main themes that you've gone well, other than your views on parents at practice, that went pretty viral.
Can I set the record straight on that real quick?
I think we tried to, but I don't think it's worked. I think
it wasn't for a 10-year-old kid. No. I get you got to drive your kid. This was more at the high school level. Okay, so anybody that's talking from 14 down, just drop it.
You are welcome to go to your kids'
Drop
practice.
Go to their practice for all I care and watch the whole time.
I drove them like 45 minutes to
know.
practice.
I know.
Where am I supposed to go?
I know. Like
I wasn't talking to you.
Jeff is just so insensitive. I just want to have quality time. My child just got out of the hospital. I wanted to watch him practice. Jeff, I can't believe you don't care about my relationship with my child.
All right, moving on.
All right,
because I know where you're going.
The second theme that you have been adamant about is specialization. I can't believe that a kid would specialize at a sport. Do you think any differently now than you did 4 years ago when we first started talking?
Yes.
Okay,
100%.
explain.
At 10 years old, no. I think your kids should still be playing 2-3 sports doing this. But, we've had Kirk Herbstreit on, some other people, and you've talked to me about this a bunch because Britt's answer to me a lot of times would be, well, Jeff, you were a freakish athlete and you could do it. But what about like my two boys who might not have been able to do what you've done? So I've changed my mind on that a little bit. Again, at a younger age. But when you start to get to 7th and 8th grade, like if your whole goal and that like I love volleyball and doing some agility, doing more training for volleyball is going to let me play on my high school team and that's what I want to do, I'm way more okay with it than I was.
Yeah.
And I think I've heard from other, not just Kirk Herbstreit, he kind of brought it to light talking about it with me, but more of like hearing from other parents, like my kids in 7th grade, he can't do 3 sports for 4 months and not practice those other ones and expect to make the high school team.
Yeah.
And so I'm a little more aware and a little more of like, you know what? I kind of get where you're going with that. Mm-hmm. And, I've told you this, my daughter now is in 5th grade. She'll go to 6th grade and she's kind of narrowed it down between softball and volleyball. And I start thinking like, man, in 7th, 8th grade, if she really was kind of like, hey, I want to be that, I'm here for it more than I was not.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
those are both fall sports too here in Georgia, right?
They are, which
yeah.
Mark my words here, I'm trying everything I can to get softball as a spring sport in the state of Georgia.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, first of all, 46 other states do it. We're one of 4 states, which we're a hotbed for it.
Yeah.
But that's a whole nother topic. But going from that, I used to be, got to play as many sports as you can. You got to do this. And I hear it. There's a lot of competitive high schools that these kids go into, and if they're splitting their time,
well, your kids are going to go. It's a pretty competitive high
for
school.
sure.
Yeah.
You're right. At Buford, I mean, you got to do it, and so I'm more apt to that. Now, one thing I will say, and that's what me and you talked about a couple weeks ago. Still, you need breaks for your kids in that sport.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so if that means, hey, we're going to take a month or 2 off from throwing a ball, from kicking a ball, but we're still going to do running, agility, lifting. I'm great with all that. Keep doing that so you're bettering yourself for that. But from the actual skill itself, you still have to have time.
Yeah, and a lot of the DMs we get do kind of tell us that a lot of times is that they say, well, when you have John Smoltz on or you have Dansby Swanson on or you have Austin Eckler, they are professional athletes. Mm-hmm. They were able to be the best player on the team, whatever team they're on.
Yep.
And most of us, even if your kid's a good athlete, depending on which school they go to, it's really hard sometimes to make that team even, or to definitely become a starter on that team that, if they don't really work a lot or prioritize at least that sport. But I do agree. I don't think it's not the good thing to do until you get to high school.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're the best player who's probably going to be a pro athlete, you're also going to get a coach who's going to say, oh, you're not going to be here for the first 2 weeks of the season because you're still playing this sport. I'll still take you.
Sure, yeah.
And that doesn't happen for a lot of kids.
No, you're right.
The 5th or 6th player on the team.
Yeah, and that's where parents have to have a good grasp too, though. Yeah. Like have a realization where your kid, and we talk about it a lot of times, realistic expectations. So if you have a daughter or you have a son and they're playing 2 sports and excelling big time, let them keep going.
Down that path. For sure.
But if they're kind of like in that middle section and it's like, Dad, I really want to play soccer in high school. Well, okay, maybe in 7th grade or so, we got to start making that jump to make sure you're there. I'm definitely have leaned way more over that way than I thought I ever would.
You just came lower than I thought you would come to 7th grade.
Yeah.
Because my story is I pulled my kids and we supposedly jointly made that decision, but I probably influenced it a lot. I pulled them from playing basketball in 7th grade, and they were good basketball players. They weren't ever going to play pro basketball because they're 5'8". But we skipped basketball that year for tennis, And after that year, we went back and they played basketball their 8th grade year. And I was like, you idiot.
Yeah.
They just missed so much fun with their friends and their buddies playing basketball, and it didn't influence their tennis one bit at 7th grade.
I think that could be harder too as an individual sport,
Yeah.
though, when you're thinking
Yeah.
of 7th grade, whereas like if you're just playing basketball, at least you're with friends all
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah.
You know, so I think each sport's different. But I will say, I've come to realization that sometimes in that landscape, 13 years old, 14 years old, these kids are saying, I want to play in high school. And if I'm playing these two sports, I'm not gonna excel at one.
Yeah.
I tell you one of our stories from one of our guests that I still think is amazing, and it kind of is a little bit different take on this, is Kirk Cousins talking about playing basketball. Now, he was so good that he was, he had a spot on the football team.
Yeah.
So him playing basketball was not going to cost him to make the baseball or the football teams. But he was like the 12th guy on that basketball team. And so in his reasoning to play on that team, I thought was just so cool. And he knew he wasn't going to be a star. And he probably had a reputation as a star in the other sports. And yet he was going to be a scrub on that team, but he wanted to be a great teammate. And he wanted to be part of a fun team. That right there, I think, is a great reason to not specialize in high school. And so anyway, I just thought it's kind of a little different take on it.
Yeah. What are a couple of things y'all maybe in 2.5 years have kind of changed with?
Well, you brought one of them up, and so we won't go back there. It was the whole taking breaks for me. The big thing, and this sounds so simple and so easy, but it's so easy to lose sight of the fact that sports should be fun.
Yeah.
And you get so focused on achieving the next thing, building the next thing, all that with your kids that we just rob the fun out of it. And I think that's the one thing we've really tried to emphasize big time is don't let the fun be taken out of sports for your kids.
That's great. I think
I love that.
I think that as we interview these athletes, these elite athletes, and you hear their stories and you hear kind of their makeup, it just reinforces the statistics that you hear about, that just how tough it is to play in college, or how, I mean, a million things have to fall on the line with your DNA, with your culture, with your lack of injuries, with your mental approach to allow someone to play at the level like Jeff played at, or allow someone to play in Division I football or Division I sports. And so it just kind of, again, it goes back to perspective. If you sit there and go, gosh, the odds of your kid playing college football or playing college volleyball or Division I anything is so small. Why would you be so obsessed with it when they're 10 years old? Even when they're 15 years old, you're still thinking about, okay, let's remember the odds of them making it to college is so small. Let's enjoy this high school experience. But our parents, myself included, probably, are looking at it like, if they make that certain travel team or that certain club team, it's going to be a determining factor of whether they play college sports.
It's going to complete them.
I mean, and that's a whole nother discussion of why. But just listening to Bobby Witt Jr. and listening to these athletes and Austin Eckler, even who was kind of under recruited, but just his makeup, his drive. I mean, that's inborn. The Tim Tebow's of the world. That's as much important as someone being talented, and that's such a God-given thing so much. And a parent can usually hurt it. I don't know if a parent can help it. I don't know if I can teach my kids to, yes, you can teach them to have good body language. You can teach them to have good work ethic. You can't teach them to be Tim Tebow and him going out there and doing, or Herschel Walker and doing 1,000 push-ups a day. That's just something they're born with. And so just learning that, it should give us as parents such a perspective on, okay, exhale. If they're going to do it, they're going to do it, and let's just be there and encourage, like you talked about.
A softball tournament, one of the guys that helps coach softball, we were all frustrated a couple weekends ago with the girls we felt focused and giving and all this. And I love what he said. He said, we can correct mistakes. We can correct mental mistakes, all this stuff. But he said, the one thing we can't correct is your want to. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one thing through this 2.5 years. If I said, if nothing else, that I have really learned, this is your kid's journey and they have to want to do it. Mm-hmm. And if they don't, we heard Pollock, Smoltzy, it's usually not going to end well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, again, like you said, you can't force your kid to love a sport. Mm-hmm. Now, if they love it and they want to, then we owe it as parents. My dad said on that one episode, man, you owe it as parents to give them every opportunity to succeed. But they have to want to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think so many times we lie to ourselves and tell them, my kid wants to. I did it for 2 years with Braden with baseball.
Yeah.
He loves it.
Yeah.
He hated it. Hated it. Still does it. I had Sunday baseball on the other night. I'm like, hey, look. And he's like, all right, see ya. But watch any football, any basketball, all that. If they don't want to, they don't want to.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one of the other things that I learned through this that I wish I'd really understood, and it really had to do with my daughters. One of my daughters played like every sport, and she dug into tennis a little bit and played it in high school, but she never was really like, I want to play at next level.
Yeah.
She just wanted to enjoy sports. And I can remember thinking, gosh, I wish she would just commit to something. But she was loving sport just for what sports should be.
Yeah.
All the social aspects of it. And knowing what I know now, I would have celebrated that in her, as opposed to, we're going to switch again. Why don't we stick with something for a longer time?
Yeah. It made her to probably a well-rounded person and a better person.
100%.
Like that. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you, I think it's a good thing, all the things we're talking about, and we'll continue, obviously, hopefully for years to come, to continue to talk about the landscape, the changing of the guard every year with sports and parents and coaches. But, we've kind of looked back a little bit at 2.5 years. But, Britt, I want to turn it over to you as we're looking forward.
We are. We've got a really exciting announcement. And, we started this whole thing out with wanting to be a resource for parents. And we've had this podcast for 2.5 years, providing a lot of content. But we've always felt like there was a deeper dive and there was much more that we could provide. And so we've talked about this briefly on some previous episodes, but we've been working really hard behind the scenes for the past 6 or 8 months, developing something that we're right on the cusp of launching. In fact, that's what we're doing today is we're sharing the launch information of what we call Pure Athlete Plus, or PA Plus, if you will. And PA Plus, really simply put, it's a masterclass in youth sports. So it's a new platform that we've developed, a new website that platform sits on. It's at pureathlete.com, so you can go check it out, after listening to this. And here's what's exciting about this. I would have loved to have had this when I was coming along with my kids, but we have about over 1,000 what we call micro lessons already available on PA Plus. And a micro lesson, we define, it's a video-based lesson from an expert that's going to be anywhere from about a minute long to 3 minutes long, talking about a relevant subject. And so, kind of covering youth sports and the journey of youth sports. So on almost any topic that you have questions on or need help on or need guidance on, our goal is for you to be able to come on the PA Plus platform and find that topic. And guys, we're packaging all those micro lessons in 2 ways. And one of the ways is topical. So mental performance or sports nutrition or whatever, and we'll talk more about that in a minute, but we'll have experts that are covering a whole bunch of topics. And the other way is sports specific, and where we touch on all kinds of sports. And Brad, why don't you talk a little bit about sports specific?
I mean, there's a lot of sports that there's a lot of similarities in terms of training and things like that. But we just felt like in this day and age that we really wanted to kind of create separate sports specific channels. And in each of those channels, we've talked to experts and we've talked to folks who are currently in that space. And we want them to kind of create a path or a journey from really when your kid's just getting started to all the way to the possibility that maybe that they want to play in college or the next level. And then, so along that path, along that journey, we have these experts like coaches, club professionals, things like that. They're going to have these micro lessons talking about things like equipment, choosing an instructor, when you're looking to choose a club or a travel team, all the way to the point of our showcase is important. And it's going to be, and each sport is very different. Volleyball is going to be very different than golf. Golf's going to be very different than baseball. And so the goal is to have up to 25 of these individual sports channels. And so you'd have PA plus football, PA plus baseball, and things like that. And so, and they're going to continue to be evolving as that sport, because as we know, you talk about all the time, 5 years ago, the tennis world was very different than it is now. And so the folks that are experts are continuously going to be re-educating our audience and our customers on that space.
Yeah, I've said it many times, but when my kids started playing tennis and I was a tennis player, I thought, well, I know how to navigate this journey.
Yeah.
And I found out in about 2 seconds that what I knew was long gone.
Yeah.
And so it took me a long time and was continuous in trying to learn, okay, what's the next step? All the way to, okay, they want to play in college. It's time to get recruited. What do we do?
Yep.
And we're going to provide all that type of information. And when I say we, it's going to be lots of college coaches talking about things, lots of organizational leaders across different sports. And so we're going to have real experts in each one of those sports. And I also mentioned, Jeff, the whole topical thing. Talk a little bit about what we're doing there.
Well, I think this is where what's going to separate PA Plus apart from other things or other, like, I think we got great stuff for the sports, like you said, between equipment, different stuff. But I think what's cool is how many times do you hear parents or coaches talk about all the other stuff that go with sports? And by that, we can just sit here and look: performance training, strength training, flexibility from some of the top people out there, sports nutrition, the mental side of the game, which we always talk about. It's probably the biggest side there is, especially right now, one of the hottest topics there is. You talk about character and leadership. I mean, massive. When we talk about what we preach on here, being a great teammate. How are you a great teammate? How can you lead in a way to better other people? Injury prevention, which we got some great stuff on that, because, again, you can love sports all you want. If you're not healthy, you can't be on the field and you can't perform. And the last one I love is parenting, to help parents through this, how to handle. So, again, I think the cool thing is it's kind of got two parts to this, right? So you got a part that you can come to, see everything you want to from great coaches, great whatever, but a whole nother side that is starting to get tapped into. And that parents will tell you too has become so important, almost more important than the sports aspect sometimes, you know? So I think it's going to be really cool.
Well, and in those areas, we're going to have, I mean, this is not just Brad, Britt, and Jeff talking. In fact, it's none of us talking.
No, for sure.
We have nationally recognized experts in each of these areas, you know, sharing their expertise on a whole host of different topics. And that's just what's there today. We're going to continue to add content across all of that. What you see today will probably be dwarfed by where we are a year from now.
Yeah, but just thinking like sports training, we got Will Bartholomew, who's the head of D1 training. Yeah. The character one, any better than Inky Johnson when we're sitting here talking. So we got great people.
Parenting. Dr. Tim Elmore.
Yep.
Yeah. One other thing we haven't mentioned yet is that
we didn't ask Brad to do the parenting.
No, we didn't. I wasn't asked. I don't qualify as an expert. But one of the things we did mention was the live forums, and especially within each sport, having a group of coaches that parents can go to and ask questions about recruiting. What are you looking at? You know, how important are showcases? What's this ranking service? Does that mean anything? Should I hire a recruiter? Things like that. So another aspect of this is those live forums. I just think that, I mean, this is kind of the culmination, as Britt said, of when we started talking about, gosh, when I was a parent, I wish there was something I could go to that could help hold my hand, so to speak, as I parent my kid along this journey, and there was nothing out there. Now we think this is it. This is out there.
Yeah. So the next question is how do I access it? I already mentioned it's at pureathlete.com is where you access it. This is a membership program. So this is premium content that we're providing. You know, we get asked questions all the time of how can I support you guys? How can I support Pure Athlete? Well, this is a way to support us. It's $8.99 a month, or, you know, there's a significant discount if you do, you know, an annual membership. But really those fees are just to help, you know, pay the bills on us creating all this content.
I'll cut and say, I mean, especially, I mean, y'all have worked very hard. I've done some, but y'all have worked very hard day in and day out.
It's been mainly Britt's heavy lifting.
Getting the content and doing this. And, you know, you haven't taken a dime since you've done this, and it costs to the equipment, to do your time, what you've done. And I always sit here and say, if you sit there and think about what it costs a month,
Oh my goodness.
it's $100 a year. People pay $100 for 60-minute hitting lessons
exactly.
like that.
Yep.
And this has an opportunity, I think, like you said, to open up, and hopefully parents, coaches, athletes just tap these resources to make you better, to make your experience better, and to learn how to navigate what we talk about. You'll always be able to get the podcast for free and all this stuff. We're just bringing extra content that we've had a lot of people ask us about. And so I think you've done an amazing job, Britt.
Well, this is yes, you have. And this has been a response to the amount of engagement we've gotten from our free podcast.
Yep.
Because a lot of folks will say, yes, you brought up this topic, you brought up this issue in the sport, in youth sports. Now I've got a question about this, or what about this? And so we can't respond to every DM. And this is just like, okay, we're going to just capsulize it. We're going to put it into this masterclass format. And I think it's something that, gosh, I would think every parent would want it.
Yeah.
So
like driving your kid to practice.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'd say thanks for the love. I have to say there are a lot of people behind the scenes who are doing a lot of stuff. Our experts, are doing this for free. They've been so generous with their time and support because they care about youth sports. They care about the next generation, just like we do. So we are thrilled to launch PA Plus. It's the next big step.
We've been talking about it for about a year and a half now,
we have.
and when to do it. And we finally jumped in, and, we wanted to release it a while ago, but again, y'all have gotten so much film, so many guests, so many videos, and we just feel like this is kind of the time to do it. And, so I'm excited. We met at Chick-fil-A 3.5 years ago and talked about all this stuff. And now here we are.
Come a long way.
And that's why I actually was talking to Katie about it the other day. She goes, y'all been doing it for 2.5 years now? I'm like, no crap.
Yeah.
I was like, you think I just go to Britt's to hang out in the basement?
She knows better.
But I know this. We're excited. You can go to pureathlete.com and come be a part of the journey and continue to give us the feedback. That's why I feel like we're able to do this, is because we've got a lot of great feedback and we know what parents and coaches and athletes are looking for. And so again,
gosh, and please, we'd love for you to share, as we always say, to share Pure Athletes podcast with your friends, with your peers at the ballpark, or at the courts or wherever you are. And if you'll tell them about, tell them about PA Plus as well, that'd be super helpful.
So hope you enjoy it, and we will talk to y'all soon.